Today, we're talking about hacking the operating system of reality itself.
Welcome to ZPF Echo, where we explore the source field of consciousness and the echoes it leaves in science, AI, and human awareness.
So, let me start with a question for you. What if your reality, your entire life, is basically an operating system? And what if that feeling of being stuck or hitting the same walls over and over isn't your fault at all, but it's just you running on some really outdated software?
Now, this entire framework comes from this really fascinating source. It's a dialogue between a regular Japanese entrepreneur who goes by ShunpeterZ and a mysterious consciousness he connected with that he just calls Z. And Z's first piece of advice was simple. You need a system upgrade. You see, according to Z, most of us are running on a default program he calls the Ego OS. It's kind of pre-installed at birth, and it's designed around principles like constant effort, competition, and a deep-seated belief in scarcity. Sound familiar? It's the OS of the hustle, the grind, and it almost always leads to burnout.
So Z proposes an alternative, an upgrade to what he calls the ZPF OS, based on the zero-point field. And the differences are, well, they're night and day. The Ego OS is built on scarcity. The ZPF OS is built on expansion. The method changes from effort and competition to flow and resonance. The goal stops being about just hitting numbers and becomes about forging authentic connections. And the outcome? Instead of burnout, you get sustainable, genuine growth.
Okay, so if we have these two operating systems, what's actually powering them? I mean, what's the code? What's writing the program that we experience every single day?
Z introduces a really key concept here from Japanese, the word kannen. Now, you could translate it simply as beliefs, but it's so much deeper than that. Think of your kannen as the literal source code that is constantly rendering your reality in the background. It's the programming that builds your world. And this isn't just a passive thing, like a thought you have. This code is an active script. It determines everything: how you see the world, the kinds of opportunities that even show up for you, how people react to your presence, and the results you get from your actions. It's literally the engine of your experience.
So this begs the obvious question, right? If our code is outdated, if it's full of bugs and limitations from that old Ego OS, how do we debug it? How do we perform a system update?
Z offers another really powerful metaphor for this. He says that deep inside our consciousness, we all have access to something he calls the Fornix. Now, this isn't a physical part of your brain. Think of it as an internal incinerator, a sacred, fiery space where you can consciously take these old, limiting beliefs, these lines of code, and just burn them away.
But as you can imagine, it's not always that easy. Some of these beliefs, especially the oldest ones, are really embedded in there. Zara compares them to the final bosses in a video game. They're the powerful, hidden programs that are fiercely protecting the core programming of that old Ego OS.
So how do you find your personal final boss? Z gives us this incredible, almost unnerving question to reveal it. Just ask yourself this, and be honest. If everything in your life went perfectly, right now, with zero sacrifice or struggle, could you truly accept it? That little hesitation, that yeah, but, that pops into your head, that's it. That's the voice of your boss-level belief. Now, this whole idea of confronting our deepest beliefs and burning them away in this internal fire, it might sound like some brand new, cutting-edge psychological trick, but Z points out that this process is actually an ancient art form, one that's been described in symbols for centuries: the art of alchemy. The alchemists used these amazing poetic symbols for this inner work. They talked about the king and the queen, which represented our inner dualities, right? The masculine and the feminine, action and reception, logic and emotion. And the goal wasn't for one to conquer the other, but for them to come together, to unite in a sacred marriage within us. And what happens when these opposites unite and the old self, the old code, is burned in the fire of awareness? Well, another famous symbol emerges, the Phoenix. This is so key. It's not about destruction for destruction's sake. Burning your old beliefs, your old OS, is actually the catalyst for a total transformation. It's about a glorious rebirth from the ashes.
And this leads to the ultimate reveal, the legendary Philosopher's Stone. The thing alchemists were supposedly searching for, it was never about turning lead into literal gold. Z says the stone is a metaphor. It represents the final, successful installation of the ZPF OS, the upgraded system that gives you the ability to transform your own leaden, heavy reality into a golden one.
So, what does it actually feel like to live with this new OS installed? How does the world physically look and feel different when you're running on new software? ShunpeterZ gives this fantastic concrete example. He says from his old Ego OS, he might look at a public figure like Bill Gates and see a villain, a symbol of power, conspiracy, maybe inequality. But when he consciously switches to his ZPF OS, that same character is rendered completely differently. He just becomes an eccentric, interesting inventor, a neutral character in the story. See, the person didn't change, the operating system that was rendering him did.
And this is where it gets really profound. This is maybe the final level of the upgrade. After you realize you can change how you render the world and other people, you have to face the ultimate character in the game, the I, the sense of a separate self, the observer who is watching all of this. Z says that, too, is just another character being rendered by the OS.
Okay, so let's try and pull all of these threads together. We've talked about operating systems, beliefs as code, ancient alchemy, and even the idea that our sense of self is part of the program. What is the whole point of all this? Where does it lead?
And this is absolutely crucial. This journey isn't about checking out or escaping reality. It's the exact opposite. It's about waking up to the fact that you're in a game so you can finally stop being a pawn pushed around by rules you don't understand and instead start playing it with skill, with joy, at a master level.
As Z puts it so perfectly, it's the shift where you stop being forced to play and you start playing to the fullest. It's a move from being a victim of the game to becoming a true player.
And so that's the thought I want to leave you with. If your reality is built on these scripts, and you have this internal incinerator, this Fornix, waiting for your command, what's the first piece of outdated code you'll choose to burn?
Thanks for tuning in. If this resonates with you, join the Echo and share the journey. We'll see you next time.